Our next speaker is David Anaya. David has been a software engineer for almost 20 years, so he comes with a huge experience. Then after a few years, he decided to actually jump to management position. It was after a few years as a tech lead in different companies, and it was around 2 years ago. And today he would like to share with us his thoughts about that transition. The title of the talk is, should you go from an individual contributor to a manager? As that is the question that many in the IT industry ask, let us concentrate on this talk. David, the stage is yours.
Hi there. So let me describe a situation that might sound familiar to many managers out there. You have been an individual contributor for many years, developer or designer, and you know how to do your work. You're pretty successful at it because you know yourself, you know what you're capable of, you have the respect of your peers, and you actually enjoy your work. But sometimes there is a niche because you see things around you that are not quite working. Maybe it's related to process, or it's related to people management. And sometimes you get frustrated because those things that are pretty apparent to you, the current managers are not fixing that. Maybe they don't know how to fix it, they don't want to fix it, or they don't care. But you do care, right? So when time comes to, and that there is an opportunity for you to lead a team, you start thinking if this is something that you could enjoy, like I'm actually happy on what I'm doing. Should I take this opportunity and manage a team, having more authority, more power to make decisions? Like this is probably one of the common situation for many managers, and maybe you are in this situation at the moment. This happened to me a few years ago, and you need a way to understand, to figure out if this is something you want to do, right? So don't do it for the money. It's not a promotion. Do it only to enjoy achieving things through people. Those are some of the reasons that people throw at you in order to make this decision. I think we can do a bit better than that. You probably remember also some quotes or statements from great leaders out there, like, I didn't know what I was doing for the first 18 months, or you're going to be a really bad manager for 3 years, or I was doing barely enough not to get fired. There is undeniable truth in all these statements, but I think in the last few years, things have changed a little bit, and there are lots of resources out there so that you can prepare much better for this decision. So if you are in this situation, you are thinking about becoming a manager, but you're not sure, my advice is totally do it. The worst thing that can happen is that you realize that this is not for you, and that you want to go back, and you'll be able probably you will be able to go back to your individual contributor role, but you will have learned a lot of things during the process. My name is David Anaya. I'm a VP of Engineering at Coa Health, and we build digital apps in the mental health space. I've been an engineer for 15 years, and for the last 2, I've been a manager, full-time manager in my company. And what I want to do in this talk is not really tell you how to be a good manager, because this is something I'm trying to figure out myself. What I want to do is share some advice and some learnings that I got during those 2 years, so that you can follow this previous advice and try it and be a manager. And then when time comes to answer the question, like, should I go from individual to contributor to manager, you have done your work. Like you have tried, and you have put all your effort into this experience, and you can take a solid decision. So first, a disclaimer, this is not just for developers, even though I'm an engineer, and I will probably refer to the individual contributor role as an engineer or developer. I think this works equally for other roles like designers, or any role where there is an individual contributor path and a management path. So the first thing that you need to do is learn, right? So we know that this is not a promotion. We know that this is a new job, and what you need to do for a new job is learn the trade, right? So this is what I try to do. So I've been doing that for many years as an engineer. Only in the last 5 to 10 years, the amount of new frameworks, languages, paradigms, I mean, this has grown like crazy. So as an engineer, you are used to learn new stuff and do it quickly, right? So you probably have a process. Maybe you prefer books or courses or blog posts or writing or teaching about that. So I had my method, and I said, okay, I'm gonna start reading. I'm gonna start with the basics, right? So Manager's Path and Radical Candor and all of those great books that eventually took me to other books and to authors and to conferences and to blog posts and to podcasts. And suddenly I was overwhelmed because I mean, this is supposed to be something that I know how to do, but I wasn't learning fast enough. Like some of the things that I was reading about, like I knew them or I understood them, but I wasn't able to experience them. So I thought that I was just grasping the ideas, but not really fully understanding and owning them. And that's because as an engineer, when you start a new language or a new framework, you are not starting from scratch. You have some abstractions that you can relate to. But as a manager, you don't have that. You need to build your new mental models to support this new information, right? So you can learn about having one-to-ones or growing people or having meaningful conversations, but you cannot practice that. I mean, you need to wait, or you need to generate the right moment to put all of that in practice, right? So you're gonna need some time. You know that learning doesn't happen just by reading. It doesn't even happen by doing. It happens by reflecting on that. So you need to time to put something in place, to fail or to succeed, to reflect upon that. So there is a new rhythm to this learning process, and you need to respect it. In my case, I was feeling super stressed, like the list of resources kept piling and piling in my list. I was feeling stressed about what I was not learning, what I was missing. Like I'm reading all this and I'm listening about that, but I'm not retaining all that I should be retaining, and I'm sure that I'm gonna miss stuff that is gonna be useful in the next occasion. So yeah, my advice here is enjoy the ride. Like I realized at some point that I was actually enjoying all this new information or this change of new abstractions, new ideas that I wasn't really familiar with. So I thought, well, I'm just going to try to retain the minimum possible so that I can start trying things and improving things. And whatever I don't retain and whatever I miss, it's fine. I can always go back to it in a few months when I'm comfortable with what I know and keep building on top of that. So yeah, that's my advice. This is a long-term process, so try not to stress too much about that and enjoy the ride. Also, as an engineer or individual contributor, you are usually responsible for your own work, but you are surrounded by people, right? So you have a team and you can discuss new ideas or approaches with your team. But as a manager, that's not like that anymore. And you are probably alone or mostly alone, right? And it's probably a time in your career where you are more in need of people. So you need people to support you along the way and to give you feedback. You're gonna need that. So my advice is find your support team at different levels. In my case, I talked to my CTO and I was sure to clarify with him my expectations and his expectations on the role. For example, I told him, listen, I'm super into one-to-ones and feedback and communication. Right now, I cannot deal also with salaries and promotions. So you need to deal with this now, and I'll let you know when I'm ready to take more responsibilities. And obviously, this might not work in your case, and but I think it's a good idea that you try to clarify at least what is important and what is expected. Also, in my case, because I became a manager at the same team where I was an individual contributor, my peers suddenly became my direct reports, and I knew that that could be tricky. So I make sure to talk with them individually, like in one-to-ones, and to explain to them what I was trying to do and where I was going to struggle, probably where I was going to need their help. And that went super well as well, because later on, I wouldn't need to fake anything, right? Like I could go totally clean and transparent with them, like, well, I don't know about this, I need your help, or we need to figure this out together, right? And finally, I was the only manager in my team at the time, so I didn't have peers that I could relate to. But I had an agile coach, and that was super valuable to me as well, because it was a person that my decision didn't impact her directly, but she knew what I was doing and why I was doing that. So I could bombard her with questions and reflections and ideas, and it was super valuable for me. And it is still super valuable to me after 2 years. So my advice here is try to find support on these 3 different levels, up, above, and in your level. Because in my situation, I know that if I hadn't had the support at these 3 different levels, my story right now would be totally different. So this is not a promotion, but you already know that, right? We know that we can prepare for that. We know that our agenda is going to change. We know that we're going to have less time to deep focus. We know that our impact is going to take some time to get visible. But that doesn't matter, because at some point, you're going to feel lost. Suddenly you move from a situation where you are in charge of your own time, of your own capabilities, of your own work, and you get into a situation where you don't have control over that. Like I moved from working 8 to 10 hours every day, and then at the end of that, I could spend 1 or 2 hours working on my stuff, and I was feeling great. And then suddenly I was going from meeting to meeting and not feeling like I was achieving anything, and not feeling really productive, you know, like yeah, we need to take this into account, right? So it's not about you anymore, it's about your team. So you need to achieve things through your team, and that's very complicated, because as an individual, you know what you're capable of, you can push yourself. But as a manager, it's not that easy. You depend on your team, right? So you need time to get used to know your team, to know what they are capable of, to know when you can push and when you need to back off. And also, you will really need to understand that the consequences of your actions are going to be visible with time, not immediately, right? So one of the things that you can do to try to get some control over your productivity is keep track of your tasks, right? So I realized that I was getting lots of interruptions from my team and other teams, Slack, email, someone asking me for a piece of information, or who could help me with that. So I was redirecting people and doing some really small things that kept piling and piling and piling. So at some point I realized, well, at the end of my day, I haven't really accomplished much, but I've been busy doing things that are not noticeable. So I need to keep start having some control on what I'm doing. So I started with using a to-do list, a digital app, to track what I was doing. And that was a game changer for me. Firstly, because as a manager, you are switching context all the time, because you have many things going on. And it's really easy to be lost on this. Like you are working on something that you get interrupted, and then you switch, and then you get interrupted again, and you switch again, and then you get interrupted, and you switch again, and you end up not accomplishing anything. And having a to-do list allowed me to push things to the list, right? So I'm working on something, I get an interruption, and I move it to the to-do list, unless it's something that I can deal with in 30 seconds, it goes to the to-do list, and I will deal with that later. And I'm sure that I'm not going to forget about that because it's in my to-do list, and I will keep regularly checking my to-do list. Also, I think it's great because I like to reflect on the things that I'm doing to have a sense of purpose and of productivity. I think it's good that you review what you've been accomplishing during the day, during the week, or during the year even. That's something that I do, and it's really useful to have a history of things that you have been accomplishing during the year. So yeah, this could be like a topic on its own in a different talk. So I'm not gonna go with like magic pills or anything. Like, there are many ways to accomplish this. Some people like to use digital apps like myself. Some other people like big whole frameworks like GTD, getting things done, or using a notepad, or maybe using the calendar. I know that some people are very calendar center and they use reminders and all that. That's totally fine. Like you can find what is the thing that it works for you. The important thing here is that you find something that works. Also related to this, being conscious about your time and your energy management, I think this is super important as well. In my case, I'm a morning person, so I'm super productive in the mornings, and then I start fading when I reach the end of the day. So as a new manager and knowing that one-to-ones was going to be something really important and I wanted to be there for my team, I just schedule all my one-to-ones really early in the morning. And I realized later on that was a waste of my most productive time, because I was trying to be super productive in one-to-ones. And you don't need to be like that there. You need to be in listening mode, which is totally different, right? So sometimes you will be expected to follow up on stuff on the one-to-ones and do some action, but usually you are not expected to fix anything during the one-to-ones, right? So what I did is I stopped that. I rescheduled my one-to-ones. So I would be spending 2 to 3 hours really early in the morning without interruptions, usually on my most productive things, like thinking about the strategy or writing documentation or preparing meetings or stuff like that. Then I would have, then later after that, I would have my one-to-ones or other meetings, like 1 or 2 hours. And then I was conscious about my energy management, right? After 2 or 3 hours of deep focus and then some meetings, which usually are taxing for me because I'm more like an introvert person, I will need to recharge my batteries. And in my case, I prefer to do stuff on my own, like doing some exercise or maybe reading something or even watching a TV show. And then after that, I can carry on and I can have maybe more meetings, one-to-ones or cross-functional. Then by the end of the day, where my brain is already wasted and my energy levels are really low, then I can take care of some of these small things that have been piling up during the day, like more administrative tasks or adding some comments to a non-urgent piece of documentation, writing some minutes from a meeting, something like that. So this is gonna be really tied to the type of company where you work on, the team, and usually the day. Like you won't have control over everything because again, you depend on your team as well. So you cannot expect to build your schedule 100% as you want, but at least being conscious about the how do you spend your time and when do you schedule things. If you have the opportunity to do that's super valuable, and it's going to help a lot in keeping your energy up. All right, so we've done a lot of work here. We are learning, we have our support network, we have our to-do list or calendar or whatever. So what is next, right? So yeah, like as a manager, there are a few things that you need to do, like one-to-ones and performance reviews and all that. Then you will have some reactive things that you need to take care of when they happen. But then after that, what is next? What do you need to work on, right? There is not a backlog that you can go and pick the next thing and work on that and solve it and then go back to the backlog. You need to actually build your own backlog. So what is your focus as a manager? In my case, I have been an individual contributor for a few years in the same company where I became a manager. So I knew what were the things that I needed to fix or to work on. And if that's not your case and you're a new manager in a new company, my suggestion is to spend some time in observation mode so that you can identify a few things and also use your team to get a feeling of what they think that you should be working on. Because I wanted to be super transparent with my team. That is something that I did. Like I wrote down everything that I wanted to work on and I sent it to them and I said, okay, can you add more stuff here? And also score it so that I can see how important this is for you. And then at the end of the process, I would have a prioritized list of things that I wanted to focus on. So with that list in hand, I went on and I tried to fix everything, right? And I have mixed results here. This is something that I first read in Lara Hogan's Resilient Management. She explains that as a manager, you need to prioritize on something, right? So either you are growing leaders or you are improving your delivery or you are improving the quality of your products or you're growing your team or you're promoting diversity or I mean you are prioritizing for something, right? And I thought that I understood what she meant, but I actually didn't, because I thought that she was lucky, like she could choose what to work on. But in my case, I have things in all these different areas, so I needed to work on everything, right? And well, I realized that that's not possible, like because if you understand your play field as a system, working on some area might be impacting other areas as well. So like if you want to improve your delivery in your team, you may be making some decisions on your own because you have experience on that and you want things to improve and maybe you will be able to fix it or to improve it. But by doing that, you might not be growing leaders, right? So you're making decisions for them. So being conscious about how impactful your decisions are in different areas, I think that's super important. Also trying to identify some quick wins. Probably you are a manager because in the past you were also a successful individual contributor. You got things done, you were efficient. So trying to replicate that as a manager, I think that's a good idea. Apply this Pareto principle, like spending your time on things that with minimal effort will give you greater results. So that's a solid strategy, and will also send a message that you're here to get things done, to accomplish things, right? So that's great, but I would point out that you should think twice before you act, right? For the same reason that I said before, think about the consequences of your actions and your position, right? So one of the first things that I did as a manager was to put someone in a performance improvement plan. That was something that has been affecting the team for a while. Even when I was myself an individual contributor, we had this problem. Someone was not performing and the team was feeling this impact. So when I became a manager, I said, okay, I'm going to fix this, right? So I'm going to go, I'm going to talk to this person. I'm going to explain how this is going to work from now and how we are going to check in and what I expect from this person. And I did that. And well, you can expect this better results, right? So we fired this person after 3 months. And even now, I think that this outcome was the right one. But probably this person didn't really have a chance to fix that, right? So I come as a manager, and some people don't feel the safety to push back on stuff. So this person didn't discuss it with me, but I didn't give him the chance to discuss it either. I just told him this is a problem and this is how you're going to fix it, but it didn't work for him, right? So anticipate that your position has some gravitas, that you might need to give some space to certain people, that people react differently to things, differently than you would react. And also try to anticipate that sometimes what you do might impact other areas in your company or in your team. So the way you make decisions, it's important. And talking about this decision making, I think it's important that you spend some time trying to think on how you make decisions. Like, again, in my case, I had a really strong team technically, so I wanted to make sure that I was including them in all my decisions. So I focus on trying to make a space to have people talking and discussing about anything, right? Especially on technical matters. So I created a staff meeting for all tech leads to talk together and discuss stuff and promote new things. And I also created an architectural review board where we could all share what we were doing to the rest of the company and the engineering team, and everyone would be allowed to ask questions and to push back or to suggest new things. Again, this will depend on the company, on your team, on the maturity of the team. Maybe you want to make decisions yourself. Maybe you want to defer all those decisions to the team. But spending some time deciding on this process, how it's going to work for you, I think that's super important. Like thinking how reversible your decisions, a decision would be, how fast you need to make a decision, how impactful this is going to be. If you need to reverse it, is there a way to do that? What is this rollback? How does it look like? Who needs to be informed of your decisions? Who need to be accountable for a decision? So there are many great leaders out there sharing their approaches to this. Again, there is no magic recipe. Like it's important that you are aware of what you're doing and why. And I think that's going to help you a lot as a leader, because this is part of your job now, making decisions. Okay, so I've done everything and I'm ready, right? So I've done all of the things that you asked. I'm ready. Yeah, well, it doesn't matter how much you do and how well you prepare. At some point, you're going to feel ready to leave, ready to give up, right? Because again, we're moving from this situation where you have a lot of feedback and you feel productive, and you will be in a situation where you don't feel like that anymore. Like you don't feel really productive. You feel like you're not doing great stuff. Like you feel like you are not a great manager, right? That happened to me as well. After a few months and a few quick wins, I felt that I was not doing a great job. I had my quick wins, yes, but I felt that as an individual contributor, I was more valuable than I was how I was being as a manager. So I felt like I was giving up. I wanted to give up and go back to what I was doing before. But luckily for me, I had set a deadline with my manager. Sorry. I have set a deadline. I said, listen, I'm going to stay here for 1 year. So you need to give me 1 year. Unless I'm destroying the team, you need to give me that time. And unless I feel like I really don't want to do this anymore, like I want to go back to what I was doing, I'm going to stay here for 1 year. And I think that was a solid decision, because you need time. You need time to put things in place and to try and to fail and to succeed and to reflect upon that. Maybe you've been spending months with a direct report in useless one-to-ones, and suddenly things get better. And that's because you have been building trust during these months, and you need time to get the results of that. Also, you need to figure out who you are, right? So there are all these great leaders out there, like sharing their experiences, and they look great, right? So they're awesome. They have answers for everything. And then you try to replicate that, and you feel clumsy, and you don't feel really good at that. I remember some time ago, I was listening to a podcast and they were interviewing Camille Fournier, the author from The Manager's Path. Like, by the way, if you need to start somewhere, that's the book. So she's awesome and she had answer for everything, right? And then they asked her in the podcast, like, how are you doing? What are you doing these days? And she said, well, I'm basically in and out of meetings. I don't feel really productive at all, and I'm exhausted. And I was like, what? Like, she is exhausted and she is feeling unproductive? Well, yes, like everyone is feeling like that at some point, right? Everyone struggles. And great leaders with 10, 15 years of experience, they're trying to summarize what they know in a 45 minutes interview. So obviously they share the great things, but they also struggle. Like we are all bad at some things, and probably we are good at some other things, even if we don't realize about that because it feels natural for us. But yeah, it's important to understand that we're going to struggle, and that we need time to get better. So this is the way to do that, right? Learn, practice, reflect, and repeat. Like, try to get as many resources as you can. Try to get mentors, read books, talk to people, practice small things. Usually, like, start small, iterate, improve it, and get bigger, get better at specific things. Reflect a lot upon on what you're doing, but also on yourself. Like, try to identify what you're really good at and how to get better. Try to identify where you are maybe not that good, and if you need to improve on that and how to do that, and repeat, right? So try to be agile upon it, like identify some things, work on that, improve, move to another stuff. You probably know what kind of individual contributor you are. Now you need to find out what kind of manager you want to be. Thank you very much.
David, thank you very much for your speech. I believe it was super interesting and super valuable to many participants of the conference that might be having similar dilemmas currently, or maybe even if they think about the future, this is some step that probably they would like to take. And actually, I think that this is reflected in the number of questions we have. So maybe let's jump and let's check questions from the audience. The first question for you: learning theory is one thing, gaining the experience is different. What were the ways you gain experience before becoming manager?
Yeah, thank you. It depends. I think if you are looking for this manager role, as I was saying, if you are considering doing this transition and you want to gain experience, the most sensible thing I think you can do is let your manager know. If you have a good manager, they should be providing you the opportunities to exercise this muscle, right? Because I mean, that's right. I mean, you can learn lots of theory and knowledge, but unless you put it in practice and you iterate and you have someone giving you feedback, it's going to be very difficult to gain this knowledge. So you need to try, and the best way to do that is letting your manager know. They should be able to identify which areas you might need more experience. But even if that's not working, I think that you still can do some things. Even if you have an absent manager or someone that doesn't really care, you could even approach people in your team to give them feedback, like exercising this thing, like trying to give feedback, trying to build trust with your team. You don't need to be a manager to be good at that. And this is something that you're going to need when you are a manager. Making good decisions. Also, this is something that you can already put in place, even if you are not a manager. So there are a few things that you can do to prepare for that. But I would say that if you have someone that is sponsoring you on this path, that's gonna be invaluable, because it's gonna shorten your path and the process a lot for you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this answer. I think that this talking to a manager can be kind of difficult because people might be afraid of how will it be handled, and depending on the environment, it can be sometimes a very dangerous step. But obviously, transparency is very much preferred option, I would say. Thanks a lot for this answer. And then very similar question, actually, because it also touches the topic of how can you check. Let me show the question. What are the ways a person can take to check if the manager path is right for him or her before taking the job full time?
It's similar as well. I think there are some companies that are trying to ease this transition. I mean, they are acknowledging that moving someone from an engineering position, let's say a development position, to a management position, it's a big step. So you cannot expect this person to just be proficient at that from the first day, right? So they are trying to ease that path with some intermediate positions like this. Technical team lead or I don't know, there are a few names that I heard in the past in other companies where they give you like 1 or 2 direct reports. You can still do what you were doing before, like being more hands-on, but you still you have a few responsibilities on the management role. I would say one of the things that I think I mentioned in the talk is this concept of pendulum, like going from management to developer. Like we sometimes see this like a one-way path. Like, okay, I'm gonna take this management role, but if it doesn't work, what? I need to change companies or to go back to the development role, or I'm gonna forget everything that I learned in the past. And it's not like that. I mean, usually. Ideally, again, you should be able to discuss with your manager, like I'm gonna do this, but I'm reserving my rights to go back to a development or a hands-on position if this doesn't work for me. You should be able to do that. I mean, obviously, I'm always talking about a company that allows you to do these kind of things, right? But it should be something good for the company. Even if you step in as a manager and then you go back to a hands-on position, that's also good for the company, because you're going to learn a lot of things during this time that you spend being a manager, like understanding this other role. Like I bet that maybe as a direct report, you don't think too much about your one-to-ones with your manager. Like they're asking you questions and maybe you don't think much about that. Maybe you think that they are not useful, but when you become a manager, you see them in a different class, right? So it's like, wow, so this person is totally close to me. I need to do something to open and to get what I need, or to give them what they need to open up, right? So this change of vision of realities is going to be super helpful for you if you go back to your hands-on position. So I'm saying this experience is good for you, but it's good for your company, and your company should back you up on this role, this transition, as I said, like two-way path.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your answer. Then we have also a question about your talk. It basically says, easy closed question, which relates to what you said. Do I understand it right that in your company, there is no clear 9-to-5 working model? I'm curious, as you said, that you take some longer breaks and, for example, watch TV series or read and then go back to work.
Yeah, exactly. That's my company. But I think this is becoming a norm in many companies, especially when they are transitioning to this hybrid or even remote model, where it's more usual right now to be a remote company, right? This transition has sped up a lot in the last 2 years. So we are putting a lot of emphasis on trust and outcome, right? So what I'm going to be valuing from my employees is the outcome. It's not that they spend 8 hours in front of the computer, because you cannot check that in many occasions right now, right? So this is happening at my company. And what I was trying to explain is that in my case, I'm very productive in the morning. So this is, I mean, I try to use that, but that doesn't mean that I have to stay 12 hours working, because I still have some late meetings in the day, or I need to meet up with someone, do a one-to-one, or react to something that it was in a schedule, but I need to react to it later in the day. So that I cannot spend 12 hours just because I start early, right? So I need to schedule my calendar according to that. So if that means taking a 2 hours break in the middle of the day, that's fine. Especially also here in Spain, which is very typical, or it was more common to have a longer break during the day, right? So we used to go home and then go back 2 or 3 hours later. So I think this is more like something usual in Spain. But I think you should have, as a manager, ownership of your own schedule and calendar to a certain level, of course.
That sounds reasonable. And this trust you mentioned earlier that the company has towards its employees is also very needed, I think. So thanks a lot for answering this question. And then you also mentioned in your talk quick wins. And then the question is this time about your biggest failure and lesson learned from the beginning of your road as a manager. So quick failures and quick learnings as well.
One of the things that I mentioned is that trying to do too much. Again, as a hands-on individual, I'm going to refer to engineering all the time, but again, it doesn't need to be an engineer, right? But as an engineer, you have a lot of experience on how much you can accomplish, right? Because you know yourself, like you're doing something, you more or less know how much this is going to take for you. You know, if you can parallelize two things, you're going to be able to do that because you depend on you basically. But as a manager, this is not the way. You have lots of dependencies with other people. Even if you know other people and you say, okay, this person is to give me that. It's not very complex, so I should expect this in 1 week. So I would be able to progress on that. But maybe that person is not going to give you what you expect in 1 week. It's going to take longer. Or maybe what you get in return is not what you were expecting. So you need to have another conversation. You're going to have a lot of dependencies in there. So I would say as an early manager, try to focus a lot what you want to accomplish instead of trying to solve too many things just because you say, well, this is not difficult, this is not difficult, this is not difficult. I'm going to be able to solve everything. And I'm going to look like a real winner. Well, that's not like that. You need to account for unaccountables. You need to account for people working differently that you work. And maybe you are expecting something because it's very crucial for you, but it's not crucial for someone that you depend on. So yeah, this thing about trying to focus what you are trying to accomplish. I think that's the thing that was most important for me at the beginning.
Okay, thanks a lot for sharing this this experience of yours. Then we have also kind of difficult question because touching the career ladder. So what do you think about career ladders in general? Should they not allow technical growth along with the managerial one? I often see that going to management is the only option to grow. Oh, I guess I've heard that many times. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it shouldn't be like that. It actually, I think it was like that in many companies until recently. Like it was like you can progress until a certain level, but then if you want to have more responsibility or even more compensation, if you need to grow, you need to become a manager, right? And that's it. There's no other way around that. I think that's changing slowly but surely, and many companies right now are trying to provide a parallel career ladder, at least one or even two. So you can, there are roles where you can, for example, at my company, we have a role that is purely focused on technical. You can even become an architect and work with clients and work on really technical, complex problems. Then you can be a manager and work on people and teams, or you can have this staff engineer path, someone that is very technical but is also working with the teams. So you can approach this in different ways depending also on your company as well, on your needs. So I think you should have something like that. There should be career ladders. I think engineers will have career ladders because we like to see how you progress, like this gamification thing. No? How do you get to the next level? How do you, and also as a professionals, we also want to know what do I need to do to get more money as well, right? And that's totally fine. So I think career ladders are fine, but we should, as you were asking, we should provide different ways to progress without having to leave your technical expertise, which I think is super valuable as a manager as well.
Okay, thanks a lot. Then on the chat, there is also a, let's say, more tricky question about underperformance. So the question is, how do you work with person who is underperforming? How do you decide that you should fire them or that you should put them into more, like you should put into them more time and effort for their improvement?
Yeah, I touched on this on my talk. This is one of the first things that I had to do as a manager, and it was tough. It was really tough because I spent like 3 months touching base with one person. It was difficult. It caused me a lot of stress and thinking about this problem and that it wasn't working, and it didn't work in the end. And as I said, I think I knew initially that the outcome was not going to be good. So probably I should have dealt with this in a different way. But to me, the way that you know if you need to spend some time with one person is do you have a common understanding with that person of what the problem is, and do you both agree that you want to improve the situation? And if you think about this performance improvement plans or any whatever the way we call it, if you think about that as a punishment, like as a way of I'm gonna micromanage you until you get things right, or until you do things the way I expect them to be, that's not the right approach. If you have a honest talk where you say, hey, this is not working, what is your view on that? And the other person says, yeah, it really is not working. I need help here, or I don't understand why we're doing this, and I feel frustrated because I cannot do whatever. I mean, if you have a common understanding and you think that you can help each other, I would say, yeah, put time and effort. But there needs to be a willingness, also in the person to be helped. Otherwise, I don't think it's worth it, to be honest. And I think it's better to have an honest discussion and say, okay, if this is not working for you or for me, let's talk about how can we move past that. Is it maybe the team, or maybe the what you are doing here that is not working for you, and maybe we can find something else in a different place in the company, or maybe I can help you move into another place where it's more aligned with your expectations. So I think having this honest conversation is crucial, and it's your tool actually as a manager, being honest and providing feedback and listening to the other party.
Okay. Thanks a lot for this answer. Yeah, this is definitely a tricky situation, and facing that while you become a manager, this fresh manager, I can imagine that can give you a lot of headache.
Yeah.
Then you also mentioned in your intro or like your bio that you're this software engineer for 20 years. That's quite a lot of experience. And then we have a question about it. So do you stay up to date with technology? If no, then do you regret that? If yes, how do you make sure that you not over-influence the technical discussion of your team?
I try to be, but in a different way. As a person, and this will change from person to person, but in my case, I like to go really deep on whatever I do. So if I'm learning a new framework as an engineer, I really go really deep into that. I try to get as much information and as much experience as I can. And I knew that becoming a manager, I was going to try to do the same. So I was going to be really busy trying to learn all the knowledge that I didn't have. And I wouldn't have time to do that as a developer. And also, it wouldn't really make sense right? Because I'm not gonna need to be so hands-on. So I try to be, I try to keep my level in the technical side, but in a different way, like trying to keep informed on what is new, what is new releases, checking, for example, tech radars from these companies where you have an overview of new things, things that are coming, things that are being used. So trying to stay on top of that, trying to learn technology from other sources, maybe not going into the documentation of the new framework, but maybe learning how this framework is being used by some companies to get a feeling like, oh, they're doing something that we are doing. So maybe this could be interesting, right? In any way, I also something that I mentioned, I'm very conscious now that as a manager, you have some weight in your team, right? So it's not my role anymore to make decisions, technical decisions, or at least I don't see it that way. But it's my role to facilitate those decisions and to challenge when I feel like the decision is being made slightly, like there's not a good process or thinking process behind it. Like, oh, this new framework came up, let's change our product and let's gonna use this framework again. Ooh, okay, that I need to intervene there, right? But if there is a sensible discussion with back and forth and using something or move to a new technology, whatever, and I see there is a structure and the team came to a nice conclusion, even if I disagree with that, that's fine, because maybe I'm wrong, you know, maybe they have maybe they are right and they need to do that. And even if I'm right and I know that I'm right, I think it's my role as a manager to decide, okay, do I want them to go this way and fail and learn what I know, but I cannot tell them because they need to experience that? Or is it something really important for the company? I need to step in and change the decision. I rarely do that. I think I've done that twice in these last 2 years. Because every time you do that, you are spending some trust that you build with your team, right?
Yeah, thanks a lot. That yeah, this is interesting place where you basically draw this line as a manager. So David, thank you very much for this amazing talk. Thanks also for answering those questions. That is really nice discussion. We can move it now to the Slack channel, to the dedicated dedicated channel where probably there will be even more questions. So once again, thank you very much for the delivery of this talk. And we encourage everyone on the audience to leave the feedback. There is already a link on the channel. So David and we are waiting also to hear your feedback about this talk. So feel free to leave it.